And we are back. It has been a while, folks. And if you've been along for the ride on the last 80 or so videos, really appreciate it. If you're new here, hi. My name's Kevin. I own and operate Prickly Pear Camera YouTube channel, as well as operate my own business of buying and reselling used cameras. My business has changed a lot since the last video that I made. Back then, I was sourcing a lot of my products from online sources. And my business has changed to a point where I'm actually sourcing more from retail locations, physical stores, garage sales, thrift stores than I have ever before in my life. And I've been doing this full time now for 8 years. I've sold over 30,000 cameras, lenses, and camcorders in that period. So I've seen almost every camera that's consumer grade that's been made from 1998 through 2025. So this was a pretty unique buy. And this is a briefcase full of Canon digital cameras. And it's not something that was originally even out for sale at the garage sale that I stopped at. One thing I learned from watching other YouTube videos, which I really appreciate content on, is that if you ask, sometimes people can deliver. I've been asking about cameras at garage sales for a long time now, and I've seen about maybe a 10 to 15% success rate of asking for something and them bringing out a camera if it's not displayed. And in this case, this guy brought out a briefcase, this briefcase. And he said, I haven't touched this stuff in years. I think a couple of them work, but I'd be interested in selling it. So I said, okay, we'll take a look. And when I popped it open, I was pretty surprised because there's a few cameras in here that are worth a pretty penny if they're working. So let's pop it open and see what we got inside. Show you the inside here. We've got some cameras, and it looks like we've got 2 DSLR cameras and 2 point and shoot digital cameras, all Canon. So I'm going to go ahead and set this baby on the ground, and let's get started in seeing if any of these work, and we can talk about potential values. Well, yeah, an important part, how much did I pay for all of this? So the guy wasn't really sure, and fortunately I've sold all of these cameras before, and I could give him a decent value while still taking a risk myself because all of these cameras are untested. So I said, how does 350 sound? And at an estimated, if everything was working, I thought I could maybe double my money. And if everything wasn't working, I wouldn't double my money. I might make $100, I might break even, I might lose a little bit of money. So it was a gamble I was willing to take, and he was more than happy with the offer. So let's go ahead and start with this DSLR camera, and we'll see if anything's working. So it has been a long time since my last YouTube video, and my sourcing methods have changed. My business hasn't changed all that much, apart from me only selling on eBay now. I used to sell over 90% of my business was on Amazon, and it got to a point where the customer support side on Amazon was so poor, frankly, from a B2B perspective, that I just couldn't continue to make it work. And my return rate on Amazon is a 10x multiplier of that on eBay. So it just didn't make sense on a number of levels. So I'm almost exclusively selling on eBay now. So this first camera up, we've got a Canon Rebel XS. And this is a DSLR camera that was released over 15 years ago by Canon. I was looking at my numbers today on the XS and the XSI, and I've sold over 400 of them. I've got some software that when you plug into this USB port right here, you'll be able to check the shutter count on this camera. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a little bit high. And the reason I say that is the camera looks fairly well used. There's a little bit of a paint spot on the top. So this guy definitely used this camera when he was using it. Serial numbers worn off, very common. Not done maliciously, it just wears off over time, especially if you're mounting to a tripod continuously. So we've got a Canon 18-55 kit lens on here, and it looks okay. The grip's got a little bit of wear, as you can see, very, very common. And we're missing the rubber port on the USB door. So that's going to affect the value of this, potential value of this camera, whether or not it's working. So we'll put that back on here. This uses the Canon LPE5 battery, and I've shown in my previous videos how I store my batteries. I have, I think, over 90 different battery charger sets for the most common cameras that I sell. So I try to keep everything in stock. So when I source a camera, I'm able to easily sell it and ship it out. And that way the customer gets a camera that's working and has as many accessories as I can include with it. Sometimes that's not the case, but most of the time it is. There is no battery in here. There is no memory card. So let me grab the battery for this and we'll test it. The high temperature today is supposed to be 106 degrees Fahrenheit here in Tucson. Just blazing hot. I know people talk about SADS, or seasonal affective disorder, when they talk about places like Montana or North Dakota here in the United States, but we get it here in the summer too. It's been pretty dang hot lately. So we're not getting power on. Sometimes you have to reset the battery a few times. There we go. So we've got the menu. That's a good start. Normally, if we get a power on a Rebel XS, the chance that it's going to work is pretty decent. The lens glass is a little bit of wear, maybe some micro scratches. I'll get that cleaned off with a microfiber cloth here in a little bit. So we're just making sure that the lens is moving normally throughout its full range, which it is. And let's go ahead and take a couple pictures. Okay, we've got the flash working and the autofocus is working. So a lot of the times the kit lenses, manual focus works, but autofocus, it seems to get stuck or it doesn't focus properly. That happens in 30 to 50% of these older kit lenses that I see. So that's something that I like to test before I end up shipping this to a customer. So camera's working. I'll check the shutter count here in a little bit. My guess is probably in the 10 to 50,000 range is probably where it's going to be at given its condition. And in that shutter count with the Rebel XS, you'd be looking at a value right around $100 if I threw in a charger and a USB cable on that. So good to see this is working. Let's move on to the next Canon camera in this. My boy was a beefy, old school Canon DSLR fan. It's got a bunch of old tape residue covering logos and the back, and just has generally a lot of wear. This wasn't the reason why I bought this whole lot. We've got two more cameras coming up that will probably exceed the value of this one if they're working. This was a really premium model, I believe over $1,000 retail price point when this camera was released. I've shot a lot with the EOS 5D, 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III. This one's missing the door as well. Again, pretty common with older Canon DSLR cameras. Over time, it kind of shears off, or if it's stored in a moisture environment, a lot of times that rubber kind of delaminates like this. So I should be able to get quite a bit of this cleaned off, this tape residue. So I would say I'm 50-50 if this puppy's going to work. A lot of times they're going to have shutter issues, but we have a battery, so we can test it. Let me go ahead and grab that. I think this uses the BP511. Yeah, let me grab that real quick. BP511, is there a memory card in here? Oh, we do have a compact flash card in there, that's cool. So this uses just compact flash for memory. We'll get that turned on. Ooh, got a flashing red light, that's good. Power on button. Awesome to see. So upon powering on, hopefully we'll get this camera working. Just gonna look through the viewfinder. And we're just checking out the focus screen to see if the focus screen has either dust behind it or if it has actual scratches to the focus screen, which again, over time can happen to these older DSLR cameras. And that actually looks pretty good, a little bit of dust. I have a couple testing lenses here. I've got this little pancake 40 millimeter. Can throw on there because it's an EF mount. This doesn't use EFS mounts, which are more common with the newer DSLR camera lenses that Canon and other brands have come out with. It's going to use the Canon EF, which is signified by that red dot right there. And I'm hopeful that this is going to work. Okay, focus seems to be working. Let's go ahead and snap a picture. Nice. Wow. Okay. No onboard flash on this model. So just hot shoe up here, a little bit of wear on the hot shoe as well. So I do have a couple external flashes that I keep around just to test to make sure that this is going to work. But it is focusing and shutter is firing. But I will work to get this residue worked off, which again, I should be able to. And given that it's in working condition with an unknown shutter count missing the USB door, we'd be looking at a value of around in the $100 ballpark in the United States. And given this pricing is in 2025, the next two cameras we're going to look at, when I started reselling used cameras part-time 15 years ago, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, even up to about 4 years ago, these cameras were $75, $80 in really nice, used, good working condition. And one of the next ones we're going to look at in excellent condition with a box is now worth around $600, which is just mind-boggling. So unfortunately, I mean, it kind of keeps the used camera market going and people interested in specific models, but a lot of those are hyped up by other YouTubers. I think there's a little better value for the price elsewhere, but let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of them and hopefully they're working. Okay, let's start with the older one, and this is the Canon PowerShot G9. Not the G9X. There's also a G7X, which is a newer, more premium point-and-shoot model that Canon released that is also wildly popular. This puppy was released 10, 12, 14 years ago, 12 megapixels. I was actually in camera sales at the time when this was released. And it actually uses a Canon NB2L battery, which is going to go in right here. And that's a battery that's also used by the Canon Rebel XT, XTI, very popular DSLR camera. And I like to use newer replacement batteries if I can. This is the original battery. This is what it looked like. The Canon NB2L. And I've got two replacement batteries. I just charged all of these for a bunch of other cameras that I was going to sell. So let's go ahead and see if these work, and hopefully the camera power's on. It looks to be in really nice shape. In excellent working condition, the G9 can sell for upwards of $225, $250 now, and it's gone up a lot in price. I'm sure if I looked at my spreadsheet, I could kind of track the price of some of these specific camera models. Let's see if it works. Power button's right there, not powering on. It's not a good sign since this is a brand new replacement battery I literally just bought. No power. Sometimes third time's the charm. Oftentimes not if you're using two new batteries. Okay, we've got no power on the PowerShot G9. So this went from potential $200 value to a paperweight. Now, there's a little bit of value in these in the eBay world, even broken. So given that it's in good cosmetic shape, you could probably use the shell for some stuff. If you got some issues with the lens rim, maybe you could use that. There's replacement battery parts. There's the door. The compact flash area is probably working fine given its condition. I have no idea why it's not powering on. I would actually sell this as is, 4 parts, no power, on a website like eBay in the US, and probably get a value of $30, $35 for this. So I'm unfortunately, still at a loss right now for my buy. I paid $350 for this, and we're at a value of around $235. So hopefully this next camera is working. If it's not, we're going to have some problems. And the next camera is the Canon PowerShot G11. A couple generations newer than the G9. It went from the G9 to the G10, to the G11, to the G12. And then I think it skipped to the G15, G16. So this is a very popular point-and-shoot camera with some more manual capability than you normally see, as well as a viewfinder. which is pretty unusual in a camera of this vintage. The Nikon P7 series also had a viewfinder, I think. This actually takes really cool pictures, and it's been hyped up a lot, frankly. And this now, like I said before, in great shape with a box would have a value of around $600. In good working shape, probably somewhere a little north of $400. So I'm really hopeful that it works. This uses the Canon NB7L battery. I'm crossing my fingers on this one because this was the primary piece of gear I was interested in on this purchase. Looks to be in really pretty good shape. A little bit of wear on the LCD, but most of that looks to be a smudge I can just clean off with one of my cloths. Ooh, we got power. Oh man, I was really worried about this one. Looks really pretty good. A little bit of dust internally, but that's pretty common. Let's see what we got going here. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Oh, that looks great. So this is a pretty limited 5x optical zoom, but it really is a fun camera to shoot with. It looks like it's set to auto, but you're able to manually adjust ISO, you can adjust exposure, you can do a lot of different manual shooting options on this camera. And it's a neat one to shoot with. So let's go ahead and try taking a picture, see if it works. Yep. Shutter fired. Let's flip it into manual and we'll get the flash going here. Definitely like to test the flash on every camera that I sell because that's one of the most common things that could have issues is flash fires. So that looks pretty good. Looks like a little bit of dust internally, and normally that has no bearing on actual picture quality. Happens all the time. What you do want to keep an eye out for is something like haze or mold internally. And I'll do a little bit more testing a little bit later on. Physically, it looks to be in good shape. A lot of the times what you see is delamination on the grip, or the grip can become sticky. Very common problem with older Canon models, kind of across the board, and a lot of other brands, to be fair. So we've got about $400 value here, plus the $235 would be about $635 value off of $350. There's going to be costs involved, shipping, eBay fees. So I'll end up making a couple $100. I really couldn't finish this video without just saying thank you. I'm almost at 10,000 subscribers, and it just means a lot. I try to reply to every comment that I get, and it's because of you that I'm coming back into the YouTube world. I had to buy a new microphone because my studio setup is now a voiceover recording studio that I set up for myself because I'm doing audiobooks now, which has been really fun. I've been an avid reader since I was 4 years old, and I always had my nose stuck in a book. It's something I'm passionate about, and I only have 100 square feet in that office to do all of my business, store a bunch of stuff that's not stored in the garage, and there's just no room. That studio section is gone. It's become my new eBay studio. I have an interesting idea to do a 50-day, 50 camera type series where I go over either a camera that I've sold a ton of or that I find really interesting every single day. Maybe a 5 or 6 minute video. Let me know in the comments down below if you think that's an interesting idea. Otherwise, I'll try to keep doing some unboxings and some finds that I have at various sources. And as always, keep taking them photos.